Imagine stepping back into a world you once called home, only to find it feels like you've landed on another planet. That's the experience of returning to the United States after living in Europe. Everything familiar suddenly seems supercharged. Grocery stores become sprawling megastructures, driving feels like a full-time job, and conversations with strangers hit a whole new level of friendly. In this video, we're breaking down the hilarious, shocking, and sometimes baffling truths about reverse culture shock. We spent hours digging through forums like Reddit, reading real stories from Americans who lived in Europe and were caught off guard. Sometimes in a good way, sometimes not. Their experiences, combined with our own, reveal just how much life changes when you return after adapting to a European lifestyle. Let's jump into the funny, frustrating, and even heartwarming moments that come with going home after living abroad. Before we dive in, do me a favor and smash that subscribe button. It's like giving us a virtual high five, and it guarantees you won't miss our next laugh-out-loud adventure. Plus, it's free. Can't beat that deal. 10. Grocery stores. Let's kick things off with a big one. Grocery stores. If you've spent any time living in Europe, walking into an American supermarket feels like stepping onto the set of a dystopian movie about consumerism. These places are massive, often big enough to house a football field or two. The shelves, stuffed to the brim with every imaginable product, often in multiple sizes, flavors, and even limited edition variations. Want cereal? Good luck. In Europe, you've got a modest selection, maybe a dozen options at best. In the US, the cereal aisle alone is a labyrinth, with everything from family-sized boxes to jumbo bags, and spin-offs like Cinnamon Toast, Crunch Minis, or Frosted Flakes Marshmallow Edition. It's fun for about 5 minutes before your brain short-circuits. But wait, there's more. Cheese in Europe usually means a trip to a charming little specialty shop with artisanal selections. In the US, the supermarket's cheese section could practically be its own store. From pre-shredded to blocks, slices, and even cheese sprays, it's a lot. And that's before you even hit the specialty cheese aisle. For someone fresh off the plane from Europe, this abundance is less exciting and more overwhelming. It's like grocery shopping on steroids. 9. Prices and taxes. Next up, let's talk about sticker shock. Shopping in the US is like playing a game where the rules change constantly. In Europe, the price you see on the tag is what you'll pay at the register. Simple, right? But in the US, taxes get added on at checkout, and they vary depending on your state, city, or even county. Buying groceries? Maybe they're taxed, maybe they're not. It's a surprise every time. And then there's the cost itself. Take bread, for example. In Europe, you can snag a fresh loaf for about $2. In the US, that same loaf could set you back $4 or more. Meat replacements are another shocker. European stores often have affordable house brand options for plant-based products. In the US, it's name brands or bust, and they're priced like luxury goods. For someone used to Europe's straightforward and affordable grocery shopping, the US system can feel like a financial roller coaster. 8. Dependence on cars. If you've enjoyed the public transportation and bike-friendly streets of Europe, prepare for a rude awakening in the US. Here, having a car isn't just a convenience, it's a necessity. Outside of major cities, public transit is almost non-existent, and many areas aren't designed for walking or biking. Need to get somewhere? Better hope you've got a car and plenty of gas. For example, a trip from the airport to a suburban home might take 45 minutes by car. Public transit? Try over 3 hours, complete with multiple bus transfers and a final short walk that feels like a marathon. Even a 5-minute drive to a local coffee shop can feel impossible without a car, because sidewalks and bike lanes are often afterthoughts. For someone used to Europe's efficient trains and bike paths, the car dependency in the US can be a tough pill to swallow. 7. Fuel costs and driving fatigue. Speaking of cars, let's talk about the endless cycle of filling up the gas tank. In Europe, you can hop on a train, jump on your bike, or walk to most places. In the US, driving is unavoidable, and so are the costs that come with it. Long distances between destinations mean you'll be burning through fuel faster than you can say road trip. And it's not just the expense, it's the time. Daily errands, visits to friends, or a night out for dinner can easily rack up hours of driving each week. While Europe's walkable cities and scenic train rides make travel part of the fun, driving everywhere in the US can feel more like a chore. By the end of a long day, you're not just tired, you're road weary. 6. Friendly service and small talk. Here's one that might leave you scratching your head. Small talk. In Europe, service interactions tend to be polite and efficient. A quick hello, a how can I help you, and that's it. In the US, it's a whole different vibe. Small talk is practically a national pastime, especially in service roles. Imagine walking into a diner. The server doesn't just take your order, they want to know how your day is going, what you're up to, and maybe even your favorite Netflix show. At the grocery store, the cashier might comment on your choice of snacks or ask if you're planning a party, renting a car, checking into a hotel. Get ready for a conversation that could rival a first date. It's not just service workers either. Strangers in line, people at the park, even someone walking their dog. In the US, casual conversations happen everywhere. While this can feel warm and welcoming, it might also catch you off guard, especially if you're used to Europe's more reserved social norms. For some, it's charming. For others, it's a bit much. At its core, small talk reflects the American culture of openness and friendliness. It's about making connections, even if they're fleeting. Whether you love it or find it exhausting, small talk is one of those unmistakable markers of life in the US, and it's something that takes some getting used to when you've been living abroad. 5. Tipping culture. Let's address the tipping elephant in the room. In Europe, tipping is simple. You round up the bill, maybe leave €1 or 2 for exceptional service, and that's that. You don't have to overthink it. Returning to the US, however, tipping feels like navigating an elaborate, unspoken rulebook written in invisible ink. Tipping in the US is everywhere. It's not just at restaurants where 20% is the baseline. You're tipping your Uber driver, your barista, the person delivering your pizza, your hairdresser, and even the person handing you takeout. And let's not forget the digital tipping prompts. When paying with a card, the screen practically begs for a tip, starting at 20% and often escalating to 30% or higher. Sure, you can press no tip, but who wants to deal with the judgmental glare of the person behind the counter? Or maybe that's just in your head. Why does this system even exist? In the US, many service workers earn less than minimum wage and depend on tips to make up the difference. So while you might feel frustrated, you also feel obligated. It's a lose-lose situation. Imagine this. You're in a cafe ordering a coffee. By the time you tip 25%, that $5 latte is now closer to $7. Meanwhile, in Europe, you'd just pay €3, no tipping drama required. It's enough to make anyone's head spin. But the confusion doesn't end there. If you're dining out, there's the added puzzle of figuring out how much to tip. Do you go by the pre-tax amount or the total bill? Should you tip on drinks? What if the service wasn't great? You'll spend half the meal doing mental math and the other half wondering if you're cheap. For anyone used to Europe's straightforward system, this is an adjustment that takes time and patience to navigate. 4. Restaurant service. Now let's talk about the dining experience. In Europe, eating out is often a leisurely activity. Servers are polite but hands-off, allowing you to enjoy your meal without constant interruptions. If you need something, you call them over. It's calm, relaxed, and perfect for savoring a long dinner or meaningful conversation. In the US, dining out feels like entering a high-speed relay race. The server introduces themselves within 30 seconds, lists the specials in record time, and asks if you're ready to order almost immediately. As you're eating, they pop by frequently. How's everything tasting? Need more water? Room for dessert? It's like having a very enthusiastic dinner companion you didn't invite. And then there's the infamous moment when the check arrives. In Europe, you linger at your table until you're ready to leave, often having to flag down the server for the bill. In the US, the check seems to appear out of nowhere, sometimes before you've even finished your food. It's efficient, sure, but it can also feel like you're being subtly rushed out the door. Why the difference? It all ties back to tipping. In the US, servers want to keep customers happy and tables turning to maximize tips. While the attentiveness might feel like good service, it can also be overwhelming, especially for someone accustomed to Europe's slower, more deliberate pace. 3. Heating, cooling, and air quality. Let's leave the restaurant and talk about something you might not notice right away: the air inside American homes. In Europe, heating typically comes from radiators or underfloor systems, and air conditioning is rare. In the US, central heating and cooling dominate. At first, this might seem like a luxury. Your whole house stays warm in winter and cool in summer, but then you notice the dryness. Central heating, especially during the colder months, pumps out hot, dry air that leaves your skin parched, your throat scratchy, and your sinuses pleading for mercy. And forget about fresh air. In Europe, homes often have windows open year-round to keep things ventilated, even in winter. But in the US, windows often stay shut tight, leaving the air feeling stale and artificial. This difference might seem minor, but it becomes glaringly obvious after a few days. Sleeping in a dry, sealed-off environment can leave you feeling like you've spent the night in a desert. You'll find yourself Googling portable humidifiers at 2 a.m. and drinking enough water to fill a swimming pool. It's a small but significant reminder of how different daily life can feel on opposite sides of the Atlantic. 2. Healthcare anxiety. Here's one that looms large for Americans living abroad: healthcare. In Europe, healthcare is straightforward. Most countries have universal or heavily subsidized systems, and costs are transparent and manageable. manageable. In the US, it's a nerve-wracking, expensive maze. Imagine this, you're back in the US and suddenly feel unwell. Your first thought isn't, what's wrong with me? It's, how much is this going to cost? Even with insurance, you're staring down deductibles, co-pays, and out-of-pocket expenses. Without insurance, a single ER visit could wipe out your savings. The anxiety doesn't stop there. In the US, medical bills often arrive weeks or even months after your visit, broken into multiple, incomprehensible statements. One bill for the doctor, another for the lab tests, another for the facility fee. It's like a financial scavenger hunt with no prize at the end. For someone returning from Europe, this is a harsh reality check. You go from a system where healthcare is a right to one where it feels like a privilege reserved for the lucky or the wealthy. It's one of the biggest cultural shocks of all, and it's a reminder of just how different the two systems are. 1. Cultural and lifestyle differences. At the heart of reverse culture shock is the realization that life in the US and Europe operates on entirely different wavelengths. In Europe, the pace of life feels more balanced. There's a focus on quality over quantity, whether it's food, work, or leisure. Public spaces are designed for people, not cars, and there's a sense of community in everyday interactions. In the US, everything moves fast. Convenience and efficiency reign supreme. Want coffee? There's a drive-thru. Need groceries? One-stop shopping. Everything is bigger, faster, and more immediate. While this can be exciting, it can also feel overwhelming, especially if you've grown used to Europe's more deliberate way of life. But here's the flip side. The US is also a land of opportunity. The energy, creativity, and diversity are unmatched. It's a place where you can reinvent yourself, chase big dreams, and find inspiration around every corner. For all its challenges, there's something uniquely exhilarating about being back. Reverse culture shock isn't just about adjusting to life back in the US. It's about recognizing the beauty and quirks of both worlds. Europe teaches you to slow down, appreciate the little things, and embrace balance. The US reminds you of the power of ambition, optimism, and endless possibilities. Let us know in the comments. If you had to choose, would you stick with life in Europe or dive back into the fast-paced, larger-than-life world of the US? What's the one thing you'd bring from Europe to America, or vice versa? We can't wait to hear your thoughts and experiences. Your insights might just inspire our next video. Don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a moment.